Hey friends, what's up? Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. How are you doing? You look great. Today, a near impossible task. Deciding which 10 designer fragrance releases for men over the past decade are the best. The creme de la creme. It's a really difficult thing that maybe at first doesn't seem as difficult until you start looking at everything that was released and then you're like, like, how do you judge it? Is it just based off of what you like the smell of the most? Is it fragrances that influenced other things that changed perfumery forever? Is it just the ones that get you the most compliments? Yeah, a lot of different ways you could approach it, but I have given it a shot. And in today's video, I will be going over with you my 10 choices for better or for worse. So let's jump into it. Let's check them out. I will have these linked in the description below in case you want to check them out. But before we jump into the first fragrance, an announcement. So my fragrance, Blue Ridge, has been in every Perfumania and every fragrance outlet store in the US nationwide, and it has been doing gangbusters. It sold about 7,000 bottles as of when I'm filming this, which for a little old YouTuber fragrance, you know, I'm pumped. But Terra Nova, Jet Black Enigma, not in Perfumania, not in fragrance outlet. Until now. Now they are. Well, technically starting January 26th, but that's close. So as of January 26th, Jet Black Enigma, Terra Nova, both will be in every single Perfumania, every fragrance outlet in the country, along with Blue Ridge. Basically, if you got one of those nearby or you're on a trip or something like that and there's one of those nearby and you want to stop in, you can check out all three of my fragrances and spray them on, make yourself smell good. And also, if you use the code GENTS10 in store, you can use that for $10 off. Okay, enough of that. I'm pumped about it, but let's get into these fragrances. Now, this one is the very first fragrance that I picked. Now, when I do say fragrances released over the past decade, I'm shooting this right at the beginning of 2023. So this is gonna be 2012, basically to 2022. But this is the first fragrance that I picked. It is Dolce & Gabbana's the One Eau de Parfum. I know, it's like, it's overplayed, right? It's the date night fragrance that has been recommended by every person on earth at this point 50,000 times. I get it. But when I'm going over this list, you know, and I'm trying to come up with it, it has to be there. Because this fragrance, when it came out and I smelled it the first time, and I've said this a bunch of times on the channel, it blew me away, just like the original Eau de Toilette version of the one. But this was like everything that I wanted the One Eau de Toilette to be. That's what the One Eau de Parfum is. The sweetness in here is fantastic. That tobacco, that ambery warmth. This stuff is just amazing in fall and winter time, or during the evening, just about year round, unless it's really hot. And that one is just a compliment monster. And I know that's not important to a lot of people, but especially back when it first came out, it was very important to me, and that stuff did so well, I gotta put it in here. After that one, Acqua di Gio Profumo. A lot of you out there are like, yeah, Profumo. Profumo has this big grouping of dudes that just love it, worship the ground that it sits on, because it can't walk. Now, I personally like Profundo a little bit more. That's kind of more my style. But, you know, if we're talking about which one is more important, I would say Profumo. It's easy to forget, but Acqua di Gio was not always the line of flankers that it is now. I mean, there's so many different Acqua di Gios at this point, and a new one comes out every single year. But there was a wide stretch of time there where there wasn't really much coming out flanker-wise for Acqua di Gio. Had some limited editions. You had the blue edition. You had Acqua di Gio Essenza, but not too much else. And then Profumo came out and kind of switched the game up. And it also got its own special blend, which people will pay all kinds of money for now. Yeah, this one. Ooh, I'm gonna wear it. That's good. But yeah, Profumo really brought Acqua di Gio back to the forefront of men's fragrances, and it is still a great release. Even if I like Profundo more, Profumo definitely gets the nod in terms of importance. So that's why it's here. Follow that one up with Tom Ford Noir Extreme. This one still does really well at retailers. I often see it toward the top of bestseller lists when I go to those websites and sort by bestsellers, and one of the more successful Tom Ford fragrances outside of their private blend line. Got a really unique scent profile to it. It's a very wearable scent, even though it is unique. Of course, everybody always mentions the kulfi note with this, but that's for good reason. You don't really see that in any other fragrances, at least not fragrances of this size. So if you've got a pistachio dessert note in there, then of course people are gonna key in on that. Does smell good. Nice performance with this, the Tom Ford quality that you would expect. And this one, I think, is just one of those scents that almost stands heads and tails above most all other designer releases. This list is heavily skewed toward fall and wintertime releases. Looking at everything now, I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize I did that. Oh well, we're gonna roll with it. Spice Bomb Extreme is up next from Viktor and Rolf. And same kind of deal with this one as with the One Eau de Parfum, where this to me just takes the DNA from the original and improves upon it, and to an extent almost makes the original obsolete for me. Spice Bomb, of course, still a fantastic fragrance, nothing against that, but Spice Bomb Extreme, just better for me. It's got that black vanilla in there, a little bit of sweetness. It's smoothed out, but it still has the performance. Spice Bomb Extreme, a great release. And even though it's been hyped to death, I think it's warranted. This next one, near and dear to my heart. And I'm kind of paranoid that the fragrance is going bye-bye, so we'll see. Code Absolu from Giorgio Armani. When this came out, I fell in love with it right away. I love the sparkle to it. It's another one for fall and winter time. You know, it's got a nice bit of spice in there. It's got this just real poppiness to it, like a zinginess that you don't get very often with fragrances that are made more for cooler weather. It's playful, but at the same time, it's a little bit classy. Love the way this stuff smells. It still makes me happy. This is one of those deals where I know that I like it and I know how it smells and everything, but then I go back and smell it again. And if it's been a little while since I've worn it, it's just like, oh, all over again. So with this one, and I've talked about this in some other videos here recently, but when Armani came out with Code Parfum, they moved to the new bottle style. And as I've said, the word was that they were kind of getting rid of all the other flankers, that it was basically going to be Code Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum, and Parfum, and then they were going to kind of decide where to go from there. So that would leave stuff like Code Profumo, Code Absolu, Code Colognes, etc., on the outside looking in. I hope that the fragrance is not discontinued, because I would love this to stay around. It's, like I said, a fragrance that I really love, but doesn't look great at the moment. This is removed from the normal desktop version of Armani's website last time I checked. It's still on the mobile site, but it's sold out. It's not on Macy's, it's not on Sephora, you know, the usual US retailers, so yeah. Now I gotta get some Iris fragrances up in here, so Gentleman Eau de Parfum is the next one in the list. Iris has become much more accepted as a note used for men's fragrances, designer-wise, over the past number of years. Used to be, it was like Dior Homme Intense, and then maybe a straggler here or there, but you didn't see Iris used a lot. Now it seems like Iris is used in at least one mainline fragrance in every single designer fragrance house. Like, they're all working it in there. Some of them put the Iris front and center. The Gentleman line up till now has been really centered around Iris, used in different ways, but most often with kind of a creamy, makeup-y kind of style, which is how it is used in here. Other fragrances that have come out over the last few years have used Iris as kind of a supporting note, where it's noticeable, it's there, but it's maybe not the note that everything is built around. Either way, though, it's used much more often nowadays, and I love that. Since this one came out, I've pretty much held this one right up there with Dior Homme, or close to it. Not Dior Homme 2020, don't get that confused. Dior Homme and Dior Homme Intense, which I guess is now Dior Homme Original. We'll stop going down that path right now, but I've held this and pretty high regard, close to those Dior's. Extremely classy. It's another one that is a little bit on the dark side of things with just the right amount of sweetness. This is a wonderful scent. And another black bottle after that, Rossa Black from Prada. This one, a little similar to Midnight in Paris, Bulgari Black. As I mentioned each time, those fragrances, once darlings of the fragrance community, both of them now discontinued and difficult to find. This one you can still pick up, even though nowadays it's typically discounted. If you want it, a lot of times you have to pony up full retail for it. A unique release, one that stands out across Prada's entire lineup. Because of course this is part of the Rossa line. Nothing else in the Rossa line is close to this. And then you got the Prada L'Homme line, nothing there is close to this. And even the Prada Amber Pour Homme line that came before this also doesn't really have anything close to it. So it's its own unique little thing in Prada's lineup. And I love this stuff. Now I'm gonna cheat with the next one. I'm gonna do 2 as 1 entry. So it's Valentino Uomo and Valentino Uomo Intense, which to an extent is like Valentino's version of Dior Homme and Dior Homme Intense. Kind of. There are differences between the Valentino Uomo line, the Dior Homme line, but there are enough similarities that when you spray this on, you'll be like, okay, I get it, I get it. Has a really nice hazelnut note, does Valentino Uomo. A little bit ahead of the curve, you might say, because a lot of fragrances coming out nowadays have got hazelnut, chestnut, toffee, and things like that. That sort of vibe, that little gourmand edge, that nuttiness that it gives you. Valentino Uomo had that before it was really popular, which maybe was a bad thing. It was a little bit early. So it didn't work out in Valentino's favor, obviously, because they went away from this style of a Valentino Uomo fragrance. Now they're doing the Born in Roma line, which is decidedly more youthful. It's more sweet. A lot of people would say it doesn't have as much intrigue to it, but that's what they're rolling with now. And then Valentino Uomo Intense, this one ramps up that iris, which is going to take it even closer to things like Dior Homme Intense, but it has a nice leather note in there as well. Both of those masterpieces as far as designer releases go. Now, these next 2 I had to include just because of how big they are. And maybe I should have put Invictus in here, you know, Invictus something or other, but I didn't. But I make up for that by putting this in, Eros. Now this is Eros Eau de Toilette, the OG. Not my favorite Eros, but you can't deny how popular this fragrance is. It has a nice freshness to it. It has that sweetness as well, good amount. Very powerful fragrance too. Lasts a long time, projects well. Initially it was kind of known as a clubbing scent, like the kind of fragrance you would just wear on a night out. If you were trying to get attention, you were trying to get compliments, you were trying to get noticed, you would wear Eros. And a lot of people kind of gravitated away from stuff like 1 Million and moved into wearing Versace Eros. But then I think as time has gone on, more people have realized that Eros does have very good versatility outside of just that kind of clubbing atmosphere. And it has been classed up a little bit and made a little more mature while keeping the same DNA with Eros Eau de Parfum and then Parfum. So with how big that release is, I couldn't leave it out of this top 10. And same thing goes for the last one in this list, Sauvage. Dior Sauvage Eau de Toilette. Now you may be thinking, dude, you got to put in Y, or you have to put in one of the Bleu de Chanel's. But Bleu de Chanel Eau de Toilette came out before 2012, so that one couldn't be included, otherwise I would have. And then Y almost made the list, but I couldn't really decide, you know, what to remove to put that in. I think these other ones, maybe like Rossa Black, some people might say, you know, take that one out, or Gentleman Eau de Parfum, take that one out. And you could make that argument, but I think it's where Rossa Black kind of is on its own island as its own little thing in the entire designer sphere right now. I wanted to include that. And then Gentleman Eau de Parfum really reinvigorated that line and made it one of the more popular men's lines out right now. So wanted to include that. Although, of course, Eau de Parfum did make that line super huge as well. So I get it. But back to this, Dior Sauvage Eau de Toilette. I mean, what can you say? This really kicked that whole blue fragrance revolution into overdrive. And a lot of people love that. A lot of people hate that. But you definitely know this fragrance. Like, this is one that even somebody who has no interest in fragrance at all probably is aware of. Big bunch of ambroxan here. It's got a metallic feel to it. Bergamot, pepper, we all know the drill. Lasts forever, projects well, big compliment puller, great versatility. Dior Sauvage. It would be hard to talk about fragrances designer-wise that have come out in the past decade and not talk about Sauvage. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Thank you for hanging with me here today. If you do go into a Perfumania or fragrance outlet and check my fragrances out, like, take a photo or something and tag me on Instagram. I'd love to see that. The closest one to me is like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes away. I'm gonna try to go down there soon just to check it out myself. Thank you all for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.